Hello and welcome everybody to another fantastic episode on Solving the People Puzzle, where I, your host, Francois, founder and CEO here at Wamley, have phenomenal, insightful conversations with industry leaders in the people and HR space. And I am particularly excited today to have Selo Govender here with me. Selo, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Francois, really a privilege to be here, and thanks so much for this opportunity.
Absolutely, absolutely. So 25 years of global talent management, learning, leadership development, OD, culture, experience and expertise. The list goes on. What a phenomenal career. Would you like to share with the audience just a bit about yourself, who you are and where you're at? Would love that.
Thanks, Francois. So I'm currently the group head of talent learning leadership development at Discovery Limited. Discovery, financial services institution. Our purpose, making people healthier, enhancing, protecting lives. So feel very privileged to be part of an organization that is being a force for good in the world. So that's been exceptional. And yeah, I'm obviously quite sort of excited about this opportunity today to share with the attendees of the podcast. But yeah, I've been a ardent and I'll call it passionate, enthusiastic, and optimistic individual. From a people perspective, I started off as a scientist, like you would have seen. So I have a background in physics and
Yes.
and the sciences world, but I found myself attracted, to the people environment and function. And yes, I did my stint working within the R&D sort of environments and technical environments in Cecil Secunda a long time ago. But my calling, I'll call it my calling, and my passion has always been for
Yes.
people. And the last couple of years, like you said, it's
Fantastic.
been a great career, and I'm enjoying every moment of it. I get to do really innovative, inspiring work every day. But of late, I think, now venturing into what I'll call more senior sort of advanced moments in your career, you start to think about the legacy that you want to leave. And certainly,
Yes.
now approaching my 50s, I want to be able to grow and develop the next generation of leaders for South Africa,
Yes.
Discovery, and beyond that. So I want to make that contribution
Wow.
because I feel that that's really important to me. I've had people that have inspired me and have actually supported me to get to where I am in my career,
Yes.
and I find myself
Yes.
in such a
Yes.
great, in such a great environment at the moment, as well as the role that I have is enabling me to actually do
Yes.
that. So really, that's where I am and what I'm doing.
Phenomenal. Phenomenal. What a phenomenal story. And so many golden nuggets there around one theme. And if I can circle back and just, if you're a new listener to the podcast, Solving the People Puzzle is a podcast aimed at giving insights, inspiration, enablement, and really uplifting the larger HR community. Our listeners are HR, business owners, entrepreneurs, and anybody that's passionate about people and people development. And it's called Solving the People Puzzle because people are so layered and they're so complex and they're so diverse. And if you think just in the HR environment, what a beautiful story for you to come from science and be drawn, as you call it, your passion into people, enablement, development, inspiration, leaving a legacy. I love how clear you are around your purpose and the next, you called it the experienced season of your life. So that's phenomenal, Selo. So really, really glad to have you here. In our preparation, we spoke about many things, and I'm particularly excited about the theme that we landed on for today's conversation, because I believe, especially post-COVID, it really is a continuous conversation, and so many organizations are still trying to figure it out, and they are learning. And it's all about how do you attract, retain, and develop a digital workforce. So if I just put that out there, what are the first thoughts that come to mind?
Look, the talent value chain has become quite significant during and post COVID. And, you would have
Yeah.
heard a lot of, sort of organizations and countries speaking about this war for talent. Uh, and for
Yeah.
us, I think what's been quite key in that the areas that you've mentioned, attracting, developing, retaining talent, and not just the gig skill talent. I think they are quite key and core to our business, especially being a
Mm.
financial services institution that um, obviously prides ourselves in the technology and the platforms that we use to enable our customers to have a great
I was
experience.
about to say there's a bit of a famous kind of
Correct.
when you look at discovery, you go innovation,
Tech,
tech,
yeah,
new. You look at your
100%.
building, like everything around it is
It's
exciting.
exciting, it's inspiring, and so there's a lot of work that we do in terms of making sure that the technology platforms that we currently provide to our customers, at the end of the day, it's about giving them a
Mm.
memorable and inspirational experience. But also, I think for
Yes.
me, from an attraction perspective and a retention perspective, I'll speak to that. We've been quite intentional and deliberate around making sure that we're clear around our employee value proposition. And,
Yes.
we've put a lot of work into reimagining our value proposition. And specifically in that regard, taking a more human centric approach to how we
Mm.
actually attract our talent and retain our talent. So I'm sure, Francois, you and the esteemed colleagues that are on this call know that the reasons people join an organization are often the reasons people leave an organization. So you'll be
Yes.
curious.
Yes. A big disconnect at times.
Absolutely. And so, we did a bit of research with Gartner. So, Gartner, one of our sort of partners, and we conducted some sort
Hmm.
of exit surveys in the research. And what we found is that, the top three reasons. So, this was together with our own sort of insights from our organization, but also research then with the other organizations globally. So according to the
Yeah.
research that was done, the top three reasons that people were leaving, um, you know, 36% said it was due to compensation. So I'm talking about a global benchmark. And then
Okay.
32% second said it was due to work-life integration. So you'll find that quite interesting if you
Sure.
think about how the general public refers to it as work-life balance, but I'll call it work-life integration.
Yes.
That's how the
Yes.
how we look at it now. And then 30% said it was due to career growth and development. So for us, we, a
Wow.
data-led organization, we use the data and that insight, and then we obviously had employee sentiments that were also shared, through this
Mm.
process.
Mm.
And
Mm.
so we've been quite intentional to sort of make sure now that we actually package our value proposition and articulate it quite clearly, to our people, because I think people sometimes,
Yeah.
you get so caught up in processes and systems and trying to get that conveyed
Yes.
in the organization that you miss the human being. And so that's why taking this
Yeah.
human centric approach of really sitting down with our people and going back to basics, Francois.
Mm.
So having a conversation, which I'll call and you'll know as a stay conversation. And it's sort of very basic to
Yes.
say, Francois, what are the things that you're passionate about? What would make you stay? What would
Yeah.
make you leave? What inspires you?
Yes.
Here's where I see that you've got great strengths, and how do I then leverage that and support you? So, really going back to the basics in
Yeah.
terms of
Yeah.
from a retention perspective, because we said before we start to look at the attraction, we rather look at retaining the great pipeline of talent that we do have, because we need that for
Sure.
business
Sure.
continuity into the future. So from
Yes.
a attraction and retention perspective, that became quite important. And then we've been pivoting of that in terms of making sure then, we've identified those pillars that are critical for us in terms of people,
Mm.
ensuring an inspiring environment, giving people meaningful work, providing career growth and
Yeah.
development opportunities to them, because that was one of the areas people highlighted as key for them when they were leaving. So, yeah, we've been quite intentional around putting in place then those sort of actions to address those areas.
Yeah. I want to circle to a couple of things here. And for the audience listening, you might have picked that up as well. But I love the connect between attraction and retention as a single conversation that is influencing both. You know, I think often we segment or silo these conversations, and there's a attraction strategy and a completely different retention strategy. But I love that one liner. People join and leave for the same reasons. And you know, if you think of some of the elements you mentioned, your brand, your EVP, the work arrangement, the continuous learning opportunities. I'm sure we can add in here, what is the culture like?
Correct.
Is my work challenging? Am I growing? What does the leadership environment look like? Like, none of these topics are new or surprising. And then I want to circle to the second thing you mentioned is, let's get back to the basics.
Mm.
And how do we do that? Because part of the podcast is to give those practical tools and tips and techniques so that someone can implement it tomorrow. And you mentioned something extremely obvious and easy: have conversations, ask.
Yes, 100%. So we've actually been, like I said, quite intentional around giving our executives and leaders in the organization and our heads of HR, because as you know, I'm at the center of expertise, and our role is to partner with the business and
Yes.
support them with the best tools and systems
Yes.
and standards. So we've actually partnered with them, and we've rolled out master classes, but it's actually around the basics of having these conversations and what the actual value proposition elements entail.
Mm,
And each of those
mm,
pillars that I mentioned around the work environment, the facilities, the career
mm.
growth, the development, the culture, all of that, well-being, quite critical and topical. We've had specific sort
Yeah.
of master classes where we allow the leaders and the HR to engage with us, and to we give them tools. So give them tools, give them hymn sheets in terms of how you can have these conversations with your
Okay.
people. One of the things I've been quite passionate about, and it's more than 3 years now that I've been sort of, making sure that the team, I obviously have some very astute, experienced leaders in my team as well. So quite privileged to have them
Yes.
with. We've been quite passionate around making sure that we incorporate well-being in our performance and development
Mm,
conversations. So, practically, really, when I'm meeting you every week or every second week, because we have continuous performance engagement in discovery, it's really to also make
mm.
sure that whilst I'm checking in on those key actions and deliverables, I also check in on Francois. How are you doing?
Yes.
How are
Yes.
you actually
Yes.
doing? And it's not lip service and a tick box exercise, but what are those things, Francois, that you need support with, and how can I support you with that? And
Mm,
we're very privileged
mm.
within the Discovery family to have access to Healthy Company, which obviously provides our
Yes.
employees with all the support from mental well-being, physical well-being, financial well-being, so all your
Mm,
aspects of
mm,
well-being. So we've been
mm.
quite intentional around
Yes.
sort of
Yes.
equipping our leaders with these practical sort of conversations. And together with that is what we've introduced, like I said, also the development and stay conversations, where I articulated that you asking a person what will make you stay, what will make you leave, because I think key is you got to have that relationship with your people. That's why I speak about human centric. So, really having a human
Yeah.
centric approach with your people. So, what we've been doing also is equipping our leaders with the key sort of
Mm,
leadership and behavioral tenets. And one of those aspects is around creating psychological safety, and enabling our
mm, mm,
leaders then
mm.
to first create that environment where people feel safe to be able to share.
Yes.
And it's work in
Yes.
progress with us, but where we've rolled that out, we see a lot of success. So it is about, and I think that's key in terms of having these sort of
Yeah.
practical conversations. But I think important is to
Mm.
equip your leaders to be able to have those conversations.
Yeah, and I think at times, I mean, if I look at our landscape and the audience listening, and the type of clients, a lot of the listeners are in big organizations, multinationals, and the language I hear often But I wonder at times to what extent organizations are really equipped to practically roll this out. And then, so it's one thing to gather the information, but then the workforce you often would hear says, okay, but so what? What are you doing with this information? And the link then back to, well, yes, there's a masterclass. We are enabling and equipping our leaders to have these meaningful conversations that are human centric. There is then this continuous performance conversation where I'm also checking into Francois' well-being, but the information Selo that comes from those conversations, how does that then circle back, especially into such a big organization like Discovery, on a meaningful, practical way that the change is happening?
Franca, you speak to my heart when you talk to this, because, like I said, it's work in progress. But Discovery being a
Yes.
data led organization, we love data and insights. In fact, I was speaking with the team yesterday to say that we need to make sure that we have at least data sets of integrity so that we can actually report
Mm,
on these things. So
mm,
I think critical there is, making sure that you allow the opportunity or afford the opportunity for your leaders and your employees to provide feedback. And I think, we quite
yeah.
intentional around also doing our engagement surveys, through a reputable organization. So that's one of the
Okay.
areas where we're able to gather our data and insights around what the actual sentiment is in the organization. And I think it being anonymized, it gives
Mm.
you the safety then in terms of being able to report back. So, like I said, we're on a journey.
I was just about to ask, sorry,
Yeah,
Selo.
no problem.
I'm so sorry for interrupting. When you say that, because I remember you mentioned psychological safety earlier, could you clarify to the audience what is psychological safety?
So, in terms of, and I'm sure there's many scholars out there that have their definitions around psychological safety, but it's really
Yeah.
around providing, where leaders or even team members provide an
Mm.
environment where people are able to feel safe, and not feel like,
Yes.
when they do share authentically. So it's about that authentic sharing that takes place.
Oh, yes.
And but when they
Yes.
do, when they do share authentically, that that sharing will not be used against them. So if I'm just speaking very sort of
Correct.
practical, practically in
No,
those
that's
terms, but
great.
it's
That's great.
about creating the environment for the authentic sharing. And I think
Yes.
obviously the scholars refer to it in terms of psychological safety, but it is allowing that authentic and honest
Yeah.
feedback sharing, and
Yes.
people are then not obviously targeted for what they are sharing. You don't hold it against them.
Yes.
And I think, more and
Yes.
more organizations are seeing during and post COVID that this has become critical, because we want to make sure that our employees, they feel safe, they feel recognized, and that they're able to,
Yeah.
they have a voice and they're able to know that
Yes.
they are heard. So it's being heard, but without
Yes.
having the, like I said, the feeling of that, this is going to be used against you. So I gave a very
Sure.
practical sort of
Sure.
explanation there, but that's it.
No, I appreciate that so much. I appreciate. And Sally, I think so if we start linking the conversation, so one, we need data. I'm clearly hearing you say that data is key. It might not be the top priority for every single organization, but when you start a conversation around how do I attract and retain talent or any sort of talent, I need to listen to the data, qualitative and quantitative, and especially when it is qualitative through conversations, stay conversations, exit conversations, then yes, we want an authentic answer because the outward mindset around this is we're going to use that to improve the environment and not beat you with a stick.
100%, 100%. And I think that's the key for us. Our culture OD team, under my colleague Steve Teasdale, we also try and run focus groups. And my team, the talent
Mm,
team, because the talent team is actually working across the talent value chain. So in my area, talent attraction, the brand, recruitment, and then once
Mm.
people land, onboarding, performance, development,
Yes.
succession, growth. And
Yes.
we also
Yes.
are quite passionate
Yes.
about looking after the offboarding experience. So making sure people are offboarded and have a good experience as well, because we want to get our alumni back.
Yeah.
So in across that value chain, we quite intentional around the sentiment. And so we do survey, Francois. So that's what I was saying. We do the surveys, and we get
Yeah.
data through the surveys. But we also, the last 2 years, I've been quite intentional with the team around making sure that we have these focus groups. I've even, gotten third parties involved, research companies, to come and understand a bit
Okay.
of the sentiment, but through asking those key critical questions. And specifically,
Mm.
for example, I was quite clear with the team that I'm interested in why people join us, but I'm also interested in why people reject us. So for
Yes.
me, data
Yes.
points across why people reject us, and obviously while they're in the organization, what their experience is like, and then of course when they leave and they're off board, what the experience is like as well. So we're
Mm.
quite focused around getting
Mm.
that data. Like I said, lots of work in progress, but we've made good progress in that regard.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that data and
And at least the
insight,
intention is there.
yes, yeah. That data and insight has been key with the work that we've been doing.
Mm.
So, using the data, the
Mm.
insights, the analytics from there, we're able to then understand what the sentiment is, and then have qualitative and quantitative data and insights that actually lead to us developing
Mm.
the plans and processes, strategies
Mm.
that we put in place to actually
Mm.
remedy some of this. Let's call it
Amazing.
the areas of opportunity for us to improve on.
Fantastic. Selo, I love that. My next thought is, all right, now I'm in. We're in 2023. It's a digital environment. Things are ever changing. Technology is running at a rapid pace. COVID has brought about so much positive change. You can decide to look at the positive side of what it enabled. Let's not deep dive into the negative. The entire world understands what that is. But I'd love to hear your thoughts around, what does people development look like? At least from your perspective. So I'm in. I want to grow my career. What is your perspective on that amidst the current context we're in?
Francois, I think, and also having, family, the children and family that have advanced in age, and you're starting to see how technology has overtaken their lives and our
Yeah.
lives. So I think people development has experienced a significant shift, and it was accelerated during COVID.
Mm.
So prior to COVID, many of
Mm.
us, talent learning development specialists and professionals, we were often taking business cases to Exco to get approval for technology platforms that we wanted to have. But whilst COVID, yes, really impacted us negatively, we lost a lot. But from the
Mm.
context of technology, it also provided a platform to accelerate some of the strategies that
Correct.
we had, just because of remote
Correct.
working. And so we were quite,
Yes.
we were quite intentional around making sure that we provide then technology solutions to enable people to learn and grow in the flow of work, but using a
Okay.
technology that's going to support them, whether they're remote, whether they're fully office
Yes.
based, or they are hybrid. And so, what has shifted in that regard, and from a people development perspective for us, is that we've introduced a learning experience platform that uses algorithm based technology to connect
Aha.
people to high quality content in the flow of work. And then, of course,
Wow.
the last year has been spent a lot of effort around looking at how do we then take the next step. We've connected people to this, the plethora of content on the platform, but now it's about how do I enable them to also grow. So we've also piloting the talent
Yeah.
marketplace technology now. And so the shift from a people
Oh,
development
nice.
perspective, I'd say, is that we've had an acceleration in terms of your digital and sort of technology platforms. And in the space of 3 years, wow, there's been a
Wow.
boom and an
Yeah.
acceleration. And if I think about it, I was actually speaking to my head of learning, and we went from classroom-based learning in 2019, and now we offer hybrid solutions. I'm quite passionate, as well as our CEOs in the organization, our executive, around really being intentional around where we need to make sure there's that human centric connection to our people. Like, for example, onboarding,
Yes.
we try to offer a hybrid approach.
Yes.
So, combination of both in person, your engagements to enable that human connection and
Yeah.
collaboration and understanding of our context and organization. But then also, the digital platforms provide you with such an opportunity to be able to have that flexibility for people to learn
Correct.
while in the flow of work. And I think that's been quite phenomenal for us. So people development has shifted, from your traditional sort of classroom. 30 years ago, the way we
Mm.
learned, literally 30 years ago,
Here's your certificate.
correct, classroom-based learning and
Selo.
facilitated based, yeah, to the technology, to a
Yeah.
hybrid model at the moment.
This is a curious question from my side in terms of this theme. Do you believe that there's a bigger emphasis now on the employees' initiative and own drive around their development? So you provide the platform in various formats. But if you think of the traditional classroom training, it's offsite. I kind of see it as I'm a bit on leave, and now I'm walking into the boardroom and I am being developed. And you use a lovely word, in the flow of work.
Correct.
I think you mentioned something like that a
Yes.
couple of times.
Yes.
So it's self-driven, self-directed through technology in the flow of my work, so that I'm not just receiving content, but it's contextual to what is also required of me on a daily basis in my job.
100%. And that's been quite key for us, because we often had that challenge, and even prior to COVID, we had that challenge about employees being available and taking them away from the workplace when they have scheduled work to perform. And Francois, um,
Yes.
at the end of the day, we are running an organization and a business, and we have processes that need to be run to ensure that we enable great customer experiences for our people, because we're an organization
Yes.
that's
Yes.
serving the community and the customers. So we have to make sure that we put customer service as a very high priority. So, with that regard, it was also aimed
Mm.
to address, so how do I then provide, learning efficiently, effectively, but also simply? How do I provide that to our people? And you're right, our
Mm.
philosophy is we use a self-directed approach. In fact, even our performance philosophy is the same.
Yes.
So it's a self-directed, we refer to it as such, performance and development approach. So you
Love
take
it.
accountability for your development. You also take accountability for your performance. So in our context, I will not be waiting for a discussion with my leader, with Samkita. I will be arranging that discussion. I should be doing that,
Yes.
and
You
I
drive it.
drive it. So it's driven by me, but enabled by mobile technology. So it's
Mm.
enabled by the mobile technology. And I
Love it.
think it's the enablement, in this regard. And so we wanted to
Correct.
enable our employees to be able to access learning
Mm.
and content that's aligned to their strengths, their aspirations, but also then supporting them from a future career perspective. And so the
Mm.
platform
Mm.
enables you
Mm.
to do that. So you set up your profile, then you're able to both look at content that's relevant to you from what your interests are, your aspirations, but also then from a future career perspective. So the technology enables, but
Sure.
what's key is that you have to have a proper understanding of what your development is, and you need to have a proper development conversation and development plan. So you need to have that in order for you to
Yeah.
drive it.
There needs to be a direction.
Correct. You need to
100%.
have that. So I think,
Yeah.
the for us it was about enabling the individual, the employee, but also the business, because
Mm.
business continuity is important. So how do I support our people to have that access and flexibility, autonomy to learn?
Yeah.
whenever they whenever they want to on the go. And so the learning is mobile and the development, but I think more importantly is
Come
having
on.
a clear understanding of what the needs are, what the goals are, and what you're after in terms
Sure.
of achieving from your development
Sure.
perspective.
I love that. Self-directed development and performance. I often there's this tension, this balance that one needs to get right around job resources and job demands. And as an organization, all we can really do is create a platform where resources are available. It is a strategic initiative. There is enablement. And I guess the one piece that we really haven't double clicked on, and I mean, we can go on the entire day, but leadership,
Mm,
the role that leadership has to play in an enablement conversation, because you often hear what we're discussing and saying in a podcast like today from a content perspective.
mm.
But then if you zoom in and you really go and look carefully at the culture, which in my opinion is leadership behavior, there isn't always an alignment. Do you think that's a fair statement?
I think it's more around how consistently that is applied. So
Sure.
I think
Sure.
I think often it's you as leaders, and we have this philosophy. So, for example, for us, we
Yes.
have a value. That one's close to my heart. Whenever I speak, I use it as my background. It's called the value of liberating the best in people. And we have another value,
Oh,
great people.
wow.
So it's about liberating the best in people and great people. So, for example,
Sure.
I think we've been very clear around, sort of our values and our purpose. It's sort of the foundation for our leadership philosophy in Discovery. And in this regard, we are quite, and it's intentional around, making sure that we provide the right environment, for our people to
Mm,
thrive and be successful.
mm,
And so
sure.
just that liberate the best in people will take that. And what I have learned and what I've observed, in my time over the last 5 years at Discovery is that I see it inherently in all the leadership that, we recognize that there's greatness in people. And, I
Mm,
often address the induction classes that start every month. And I speak to them about this, that our leadership, we don't have any fear that our people will outgrow us. Actually, at Discovery, we hope
sure.
that they will outgrow us, because we know that on the journey that we're on, with the people that we have, the people actually make us better. And we know that at the end
Yeah.
of the day, our people are our greatest asset, and they actually we want them to be the best versions of themselves. So we want them to be liberated, and we try to
Yes.
make sure that they are liberated. And we actually don't we have no fear of them sort of outgrowing, because we at the end of the day see them making a positive impact in society and the communities that we serve. So even if they move on, we know that we've at least impacted them in some way, but they will have a greater impact in the world. And for us, I
I
think
love that.
that sort of philosophy is quite important, because I think
Mm,
our discovery purpose and what we stand for. It is about making a sustainable impact, a positive impact in society.
yes.
And the people
Yes.
then that we
Yes.
grow and develop, the way that we do that is we empowering them. We empower them to actually go out and do
Yes.
this and to innovate, come up with those creative solutions, because we know it will serve, South Africa and the world in a much more impactful way at the end of the day. So I think that's it, the
Sure.
quality of the people. But from a leadership perspective, it's about enabling, empowering, liberating the people to be the best versions of themselves. So at the end of the day, I'll say, the country and the world benefits from this. So yeah, that's quite key for
Wow.
us.
That is such a strong outward mindset, because I often see organizations have this anxiety around the tenure of their employees, and you know through various ways conversations, one-liners, what's said, what's not being said, create this fear that, once I'm in, I can't leave. Like, this is it. But there's liberation in what you're discussing around people might, and we would like people to outgrow us, because then we know for the season we had you, we impacted you positively, but you also had an impact on what we stand for from a philosophy and from a day-to-day perspective as well. And so, everybody's growing and winning, and there's this calm composure and like very solid outlook around the purpose of liberating the best and great people. What a different, refreshing way to look at that.
100% Francois, and I think that's one of the things for me that has uh, attracted, I'll say, and also is one of the reasons that I'm so inspired and with the work that I do, because often
Mm.
you in our context, especially talent group heads and in the industry that we are, it's about competition. But when you just stand back and reflect,
Yeah.
and like I said when I started this conversation, if I look at my personal purpose and the legacy I want to leave in terms of growing the best talent, growing the best leaders, the
Mm.
next generation of leaders for South Africa,
Mm.
Discovery,
Mm.
and
Mm.
beyond here, then that mindset, suddenly changes because yes, I want to retain the best for us at our organization, but I also want to make sure that
Yeah.
people are contributing the highest level or highest value or making the highest value contributions in the organization at the end of the day, but that we also then
Yes.
ensure that the country benefits from this as well. And you have to actually step back and reflect on what it is at the end of the day we want to achieve. And so yeah, I
Correct.
think that's the thing for me is really embracing the fact that as we stand today, I actually see that talent is fluid. So we have a fluid talent economy. So
Yes.
that's something I'm
Yes.
seeing, and we need to embrace the fluidity, and we need to understand then how do we actually make sure that we get the value out of that fluidity. So for me, it's about when people are with you, how do you make sure that you give them an exceptional experience? And how do you then also ensure that they feel valued while they are here and they're contributing and they do their best work? And so that's really
Yes.
important. And then even if they've moved on, like you've articulated, that they take with them exceptional experiences, but also that they've developed and grown and they can contribute value then out there. And I think that becomes quite important as we traverse lots of challenges in our country. I mean, you've seen in the week the report back in terms of Stats SA on unemployment. And so, we've got to think
Mm.
about creative ways that we can make sure that people are able to
Absolutely.
add value,
Absolutely.
contribute value, and also be rewarded for it. And so I guess that's where the tech organizations at the moment providing gig work, including ourselves,
Mm.
to those
Mm.
skilled professionals, is quite inspiring too. Because I mean, for the projects that are needed, they're hiring the individuals, they're ensuring that they're able to achieve success with the deliverables, but also the individual gains, at that time, gainful employment, but also
Perfect.
then from a skill perspective, they're developing because you learn from a new organization and you develop skills and capabilities because the context is
Yes.
different. So I think that's quite important. So yes, I love to retain
Mm. Mm.
everybody, but I do think practically we have to recognize that we have a fluid talent economy
Correct.
and we need to embrace it, and we need to then look at what's the best way that we can we can actually gather value from that economy.
Yeah. I always say that at the end of the day, this is a value transaction with an expected positive outcome for all parties involved. And as long as everybody grows, everybody learns, everybody benefits for the season, that there is value for both parties, then at the end of the day, I think there's success in that. Selo, I love this conversation. We've covered so many golden nuggets. I want to thank you for being on the podcast episode. I can imagine the audience listening to this being inspired. We, if you have the opportunity and the privilege to drive past the Discovery building in Sandton, it looks phenomenal from the outside. But to have the opportunity to listen to someone on the inside who's representing the brand, I want to thank you for that. Thank you for being on the episode, and I can't wait to share this with the audience.
Francois and team, thank you so much for the warm, sort of reception and opportunity to share with the listeners. And what a privilege for us, to be able to share, the inspiring experiences we having. And I'll encourage all the listeners, to also keep doing, the inspirational, excellent things you are doing to support South Africa, and to also make sure
Yes.
that we leave a positive legacy and environment for our children and our children's children.